There are three cases on tonight's agenda. The first case is at 6 Pomeroy Road, the second at 8 Pomeroy Road, and the third at 75 East Stimson Avenue. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on tonight's agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. So the first two cases are related, and we will discuss them together, but vote separately on them. The first one is at 6 Pomeroy Road. Appellant is I can't remember, 20, what do I have to say? Just read the description?
Yes.
Okay. The appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 230405A1 to allow a residential space on the ground floor in a B3 zone. And the second case at 8 Pomeroy Road, it has identical description. So, Mr. Riggs, can you fill us in?
Thank you. Yes, I can. So, as you said, we can talk about 6 and 8 Pomeroy Road together. These are located, just to give you some perspective, right behind the Marathon on Richland Avenue. So they're going to be on the north side of Pomeroy Road. The B3 General Business Zone 230407 says that the principal permitted uses or any use permitted and as regulated in the B2 or B2D zone. So if you go to the B2 business district, the way that they have regulated residential uses are permitted only on the second story and above, and that's where you see 230405A1. So that also applies to B3 General Business Zone. And in this case, there has been some history on these properties that they have been used as rental units, but were not permitted or approved through the city code office. So that's the information that I have.
So has that been going on for a long time?
Since before I started. I've been here for 3 years. I think it was, I think the previous administrator or city knew about it as well, so it's been going on for some time, yeah.
Interesting. Any questions for?
Do we have any idea when the last time it was used as a business space?
I don't know for sure to tell you an exact date. I don't know that.
Possibly never?
No, it has been used as a business in the past, yeah.
Maybe the appellant will know. Okay, the appellant may come to the podium. Please state your name and address.
My name is Allie Rapley, and my address is 51 Madison Avenue in Athens.
Do you know when it was last used as a business?
Not specifically.
Okay.
I do know that the previous owners were Paul Ploutz and Jerry Ploutz. Paul was a real estate agent, and he had his real estate business there at some point.
Oh, okay.
He passed away 3, 4, 5 years ago, and then Jerry moved away and sold the properties.
Okay. Tell us about why you want to have a variance.
Thank you. Well, we came into ownership of the property at the end of last year, roughly November, and started making improvements to the properties. They hadn't been touched in a long time, and got to know the people living there. And the two gentlemen in the first floor units are elderly disabled veterans, George and Joe, in 6 and 8 respectively, and started helping them with some of the issues they were having with their apartments. Learned that we learned this prior to purchasing it, but their HUD, they get HUD vouchers for their living situation there. The units are HUD approved. And then we came to realize that they were not Athens City Code approved rentals as well. So we want to allow these folks to stay in their first floor, accessible, affordable units, but also make it right with the city. I mean, they may have been living there for a long time and the other guy didn't care, but we want to do what's best for the tenants, but also be above board with city code. This, obviously we know that there's a shortage of affordable housing in Athens. I think there's also a shortage of accessible housing in Athens for folks with mobility issues or people just wanting to age in the apartments that they live in. So this would allow those apartments to fill that need. There's also no renovation necessary for this variance to go into effect. The guys have been living there for a while. The units already have kitchens, bathrooms, everything they need to be rentals. There's no parking change necessary as well. We already have sufficient parking to meet the need. But furthermore, these folks don't drive. They like this location because they can walk around the corner to the marathon if they need to get something quick. It's also bus accessible pretty easily. So they're pretty much set where they are, and we want to do the right thing and let them continue living there.
How long have they lived there?
I don't know. The lease situation when we purchased the property left a little bit to be desired. So I would say they've been living there for at least 3 years.
When you mean the lease left something to be desired?
The lease situation.
Yeah.
I think we had a lease for one of them that the owner could provide, but not for the other one. Yeah. So I think maybe after the owner passed away, some of the paperwork was hard to find.
Do you have plans for the other parts of the property?
Yes, there were tenants in about half of the buildings when we moved in. All of the other units are approved rentals. We had our rental inspection this past year and had Brian Zulek walk through the first floor units as well to make sure we didn't need to do anything. So they're all occupied and rented, except we're renovating a basement apartment in 6. And whenever our contractors get that done, that will be a HUD-approved unit as well.
That's good.
It's actually really easy.
Can I ask David a question while she's up there? So if we grant the variance and she is permitted to rent out these ground floor apartments, would she be able to get a rental permit then for those?
Yes, if you grant the variance,
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I have a related question. Would we need to give a variance for a basement apartment as well?
It already has a permit.
It has
It already has a rental permit.
Yeah, it's permitted.
so it must have gotten a variance at some point.
Well, define a basement apartment for us, so it literally is below ground level, so the first floor is what we're discussing. So
Yes, we're discussing the first floor, but when we bought it, the basement already had a rental permit. There had been a flood in 2019 when Richland Avenue got partially blocked by some, and so that was flooded at the time, and so when we bought it, it needed renovation, so we're doing that now, but it's already approved.
So in a B3, basement is acceptable, second floor is acceptable.
The way the code's written, it's second floor and above.
Yeah.
So I will double check and see if they do have a previous. I don't know for sure, but I'll see if they had a previous variance for the basement
For
apartment.
basement, gotcha. So I do want to say that just driving through that area, and it's odd that it's the small strip of B3, but there appear to be other residential first floor locations just around the corner on Richland. Do those have variances? Were those just
Grandfather?
Yes, there are several in the area. Some of them are legal non-conforming uses. They were grandfathered in, and some of them have variance.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, I guess this isn't really that relevant, but I thought that, I wonder why basement apartments aren't automatically acceptable, because I thought the whole first floor thing was about putting a business in that.
It is, but that's not the way the code's written.
Okay.
It says second floor and above.
Okay, but the
The
rationale
purpose is different,
is to have a
yes.
business in the first floor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What if we deny this request? What happens to these two individuals? They're now on the radar of code enforcement for living, frankly, illegally,
They would be, yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's multiple layers on this that fall
Yes.
upon us, I would think.
We don't really want to have to figure out what to do at that point.
Just want to make sure that part is clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allie, when you look at the units on like Google Maps, it looks like they're like several different doors. Which doors are for the downstairs unit? There's like the one that used to be the Boss Realty
Yeah.
was on the left, and then there's one that looks like it maybe goes to an upstairs unit, and then there's like a smaller addition maybe to the side. I think that's all on 6, and then 8 is
Yeah.
pretty clear. It has kind of the
6 is a weird lumpy building.
Yeah.
Where there are, I think, 3 doors in the front.
yeah.
I believe the farthest left door is George, and then the door in the middle goes to the second floor.
Right.
And then the door on the maybe all 4 doors are in the front. And then, there are 4 doors and there are 4 apartments in that building. They may all be right there on the front.
Okay.
But there's that efficiency on
I would saw 3, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay. Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Anything else for the appellant? I want to think aloud, but I don't know, it's not really her issue. It occurs to me, so one feels the need to continue the living situation of these 2 gentlemen. By granting the variance, it means that even after they're no longer living there, it will become first floor in a B3 first floor occupation, you know. And so that's what we have to consider, but that's not necessarily a problem. And you said that all the other stories are HUD housing, HUD.
No, not all of the others were, just those 2.
Just those 2.
The unit that we're renovating, we're seeking to make HUD housing. We don't want to change anything else about the folks already living there, but our experience with HUD so far has been very positive, and we'd be happy to continue that. I'm not necessarily promising that we would, but at least these first floor units are set up and ready to go, and with a waiting list for HUD vouchers. I know we'd have no problem finding tenants there in the future.
Well, that seems like a good thing, but it's not really something that we can consider, and yet it seems like kind of a good thing to have affordable housing.
Definitely.
Okay. Any other questions for her or David? All righty. I guess go ahead and be seated, because I don't think there's going to be anything else you're going to want to address. There is one letter of support. I note that we didn't receive anything complaining about the possibility of...
It's kind of isolated. Like, if you look at it, it doesn't really impact around it, good or bad.
And maybe not a place where people are just gnashing their teeth waiting for a business to come in.
Right.
So we did receive one letter of, and it's in support of both variance requests. I'll just read it, the one. To whom it may concern, this letter is on behalf of the owners of 6 and 8 Pomeroy Road in Athens. It is my understanding that these 2 addresses are zoned for business purposes. Carpet 1 Floor and More is not opposed to these properties being zoned as residential, as there is no change to parking policies. So, and you mentioned that. Thank you for your consideration. Eric Lucas, President, Carpet 1 Floor and More. I guess at this time I will... Well, do you want to address this in any way? You're the only other person here, so we will just move on then. Let's see. So testimony from the floor is closed. We will deliberate and render a decision. Would someone like to make a motion for the first case?
I'll make a motion to approve 6 Primary Road.
You got to read the, you got to read,
Yeah. 6 Primary Road, Zone B3, case 2210B. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.04.05A1 to allow residential space on the ground floor in a B3 zone.
Thank you. A second?
I will second.
All righty. What do you guys think? Should we just go through the findings, or do you have any observations before that?
No.
Let's go through the
Let's go through the findings, if I can find them. Are there exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question that do not apply generally to all other properties, classes, or uses in the same zone?
I'm not sure.
The special circumstance has to do with the occupation.
The people that are there.
There are people that are there,
Not necessarily
There are
for
potential
space.
transients.
Yeah, it's technically not to do with the property itself, but that is a circumstance to be thinking about.
Sure.
Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances, et cetera, would the literal enforcement of the regulations result in a practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes? Same as the first one. We would be putting people out on the street.
Right.
Preservation of equal property rights. Is this an issue in terms of neighboring properties?
I guess it brings up that discussion of the fact that other properties right around the corner in that same region are doing the same thing presently.
That's a good point.
Whether it was grandfathered or received a variance as well.
Or if it's even being done legally.
Or if it's even potentially they're not.
We don't even know,
True.
we don't even
Right.
know those circumstances.
Right, because those situations would be upon a complaint-based issue,
Sure.
so.
Oh, really? Okay. And we're aware that from other cases that, it's not necessarily an easy thing to find a business to occupy the ground floor of a residential building.
There's no one that was opposed to any of this, you know?
Correct.
So we got letters of support.
Is this the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property?
That I believe, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that I believe, yeah.
Absence of detriment, is it of any detriment? Well, there have been no complaints. It's unclear.
A lot of it's kind of gray.
Do you?
Just every one of these points, it's kind of gray, because everything feels to me, it's tugging on the heartstring, because she's doing the right thing with two people that
Right.
would be displaced.
Without guaranteeing that she'll maintain the HUD.
Well, and even
Basically.
when these residents are gone, it's not, clear that there's any detriment connected with continuing
Sure.
renting out the ground floor.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Is it of a general nature in such a way that we need to consider a general regulation? Definitely not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, are you ready to vote?
Yes?
So, all in favor of granting the variance, please raise your right hand. Oh, sorry.
For 6 Pomeroy Road, anyone?
I'm sorry, you're right, yeah, for the first one, for 6 Pomeroy Road. Raise your right hand. Okay. Oh, wait, do it again. I have to look. So, 4. Okay. Opposed? 1. So you have your variance.
On 6.
On 6.
On 6, yeah.
Oh, wait,
Okay.
now we gotta do it over 8.
Well, can
Yeah.
we,
Or did we just
Shall I
do it?
make a motion?
yeah, make a motion and then we'll probably just go ahead and vote because the same conditions apply.
Okay.
So motion for number 8.
I move to grant a variance to the property at 8 Pomeroy Road from ACC 230405A1 to allow a residential space on the ground floor in a B3 zone.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we'll just go ahead and vote based on our discussion.
I think so.
Yeah. All in favor of granting a variance in the case at 8 Pomeroy Road, please raise your right hand. That's 4. All opposed? 1. So you have both variances. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ally.
Thank you. So good, I understand.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
I think you're absolutely doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Okay, our next case, or our last case, is at 75 East Stimson Avenue. And the appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 230407A3 to allow a drive-in to be 130 feet from an R1 zone. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is 75 East Stimson Avenue. This is the Sonic, located at the south of the Stimson Avenue roundabout. This was originally people have been here for a while. This was originally a rack, as I remember, in the early 80s. And at that time, our code didn't exist that required a drive-in or drive-through to be at least 200 feet from any R1 or R2 zone, as ACC 230407A3. Keep doing these over and over again, don't we? We're actually making some recommendations to modify that code to City Council. That has not been approved yet, so we'll hopefully get some clarity on that and make it a little easier for all of us in the future. But at this time, that current code exists. They would like to remodel and completely renovate the property, tear the existing building down and rebuild. And to do that, they lose their legal non-conforming grandfather clause because they're completely tearing it down. So they would need a variance in order to continue to have a drive-through at this location.
So, that's the only element that would raise an issue then, even if they're rebuilding the entire place?
There's some other things they would have hurdles they'd have to jump through. They've got, floodplain, stuff they have to deal with, but for this board, this would be the only, problem that they've.
The only thing they need a variance.
As far as zoning goes, yeah.
Okay. So are you saying that the code regarding the distance of the drive-through from an R1 didn't exist when Rax was there and was written since then?
That's
and
correct.
It was grandfathered for Sonic, or?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, we consider that a legal non-conforming use.
Yeah.
Because the use was there before the code, that restricted it.
Would it be appropriate to ask you what the recommendation is that you're giving, what kind of conversation you're having with City Council about changing the code, or is that?
Yeah, we want to make it more clear that it's for restaurants, that this is for restaurants only. Eating and drinking establishments isn't really clearly defined. We're also staff is also suggesting that we modify that distance from 200 feet to 150 feet. They still wouldn't. I think they still wouldn't meet that in this scenario. Again, that'll be up to City Council to approve that, and it has not been approved at this time.
That is interesting, though. Okay. Do other members have questions for the code director? Nope. I don't think so. Oh, Ben's thinking.
I might. No, I think you answered everything.
So we're directly in front of manufacturing, with Jackie O's is in manufacturing directly behind that. And so is...
And that's an M1 zone.
M1?
Yes. It's the residential, which is directly across Stimson Avenue, that creates the issue.
Right.
Dave, do you know what the intent of the code that kind of gives that kind of setback for eating and drinking?
I have a guess, and I think it's because the concern would be the noise from the speakers would disrupt a normal residential use.
Interesting.
I did some checking, and this is what I'm going to be presenting to City Council. If you look at, for instance, the McDonald's on Richland Avenue, they have a speaker, and if you can be 100 feet away from that speaker, and the traffic noise is actually louder than the speaker noise. I've actually tested it with a decibel meter, and so at about 100 feet, you really can't. It's really difficult to hear. I can't hear, and I can't find any differentiation between the noise from the speaker and the noise from the regular traffic from the road on Richland Avenue. I would guess it would be similar here.
That's interesting.
Because Stimson Avenue is that roundabout, although it's not as heavily trafficked as Richland Avenue is.
Right.
Yeah, you can imagine there was some standout traffic noise, perhaps.
Again, that's just my guess of what they were thinking.
What about light pollution? Because it is
that is in Title 23 zoning regulations, light trespass. I don't remember the code number right off the top of my head, but that would still be in effect. And with the new LED lighting, it's much easier to avoid light trespass because those lights are much more directional instead of ambient light going everywhere. They're very directional. So the new development could actually improve that light trespass in that area. And we'll check to make sure they do.
All righty, thank you.
Was there any input sent to the board?
No, we've received nothing. I've seen nothing, no letters for or against. So.
We didn't get anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, I invite the appellant to come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My name is Jacob Stauffer, Springfield, Missouri. I am the owner of the Sonic. We purchased that location in 2016, and we currently lease the property from Tom Carr. We've reached an agreement to buy that. We've been unable to buy it because he had it tied up with some student housing. He also had that student housing is now sold, so we have the property under contract, and And are here today because we'd like to, our facility is reaching the end of its useful life, and we would like to reinvest in it and make it a much more functional facility, a much more pleasant place to visit, a much more pleasant place to work. And that's the reason we're here. Like I said, we love the location. We weathered the road construction on Stimson, which was not awesome, but we wanted to stay there. And so we're invested in the location, want to invest further in the location. I would contend that, our circumstance is unique to this. The property, I don't know when it was built as a Rax, but, it's been a Sonic for probably close to 20 years and had been a restaurant for probably close to 40 years, if not longer than that. The facility does need upgrades. It needs some investment, and it's kind of been held in limbo by this code provision. I would contend that there's no prejudice or harm to anyone around because they've been living with this circumstance for, living memory. There's the KFC is catty corner. You have the Jackie O's behind us. We're in essentially a mixed-use district. We're currently B3, so the use conforms to our use conforms to the current zoning. It's just the overlap of residential across the street there that brings about this circumstance. I think honestly I think it speaks for itself that, like I said, the hardship is that if the variance is not granted, then we're kind of stuck with a facility that is, we could always, I guess, renovate it, but it's better off we're better off rebuilding this facility, and that's why we're here. And I think the town would, our customers and employees would appreciate the substantial upgrade. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, questions? So it's going to be really a tear down and rebuild?
That is my goal, yes, ma'am.
So it's according to a plan, and that's why you can't really finesse the way the drive-through goes?
Yeah, honestly, the building is, I've been in talks with code enforcement for quite a while on this, for this and other reasons. The building is just past its useful life. We could conceivably try to, there's not even a good way to, the roof, it needs a roof, it needs plumbing under the slab, it needs, by the time you do anything and everything you've done, you've ended up with something you like less for a lot more. So it just economically makes no sense to try and preserve, I have a pejorative term I want to use, but you're polishing something that doesn't get you where you want to go.
So was it actually built as a Rax?
Yes, ma'am. So Denny, I think it's Haskins and a couple of partners from Cincinnati built it. They were the Rax franchisees. That's who I bought. Rax went bankrupt sometime in the past. They converted to Sonic. I bought this and six total units from them back in 2016. And so we've operated this and kind of built out other parts of the market. And it's, our goal has always been, like I said, I love the location. Our goal has always been to improve or replace what is there. But we had to get with Tom to where we could acquire the land and make the investment.
Just out of curiosity, because I don't know anything about fast food buildings. So you had to occupy the Rax building, but in other places you prefer to build it and have Sonics be uniform?
Not necessarily. I have different prototypes, but I built a store in Ashland, Kentucky, and relatively recently. They're more purpose-built for what we do. That was built for a much larger dining room than we typically have. And in this day and age, most people don't, and fast food, most people don't. What they needed 3 years ago, they don't need half of now, to be perfectly honest. And so it doesn't make sense to heat and cool and finish a large dining room that doesn't get utilized.
That's interesting.
Does this unit have, I couldn't quite tell from the plan, does it have inside dining
The goal here would be to eliminate the inside dining and make a nice outdoor patio instead. So basically have a patio along the front, nice landscaping, and then a drive-through in the back.
Interesting. Is that sort of COVID related, that people just don't sit down anymore, that they've gotten in the habit of using drive-throughs?
In Ohio, it has always been very highly drive-through for our stores. This unit's always been about 80 to 85% drive-through related. That's just been the product mix. In other places, we'll have slightly different product mixes or customer mixes, but I believe the taxing here is also different in drive-through versus dine-in. So that may motivate people in how they consume.
Interesting. Questions? No?
I mean, I think just similar to my questions about kind of the effect on the residential directly across the street. The documentation had blueprints, but not a whole lot more. I did see a kind of an article in QSR about some of the newer designs. Do you think that can you talk a little bit about noise and light pollution, because they do seem like they have a number of kind of, as opposed to just having a single speaker in the back, they have drive-up screens on every stall, and but I don't know if that's your design or not.
Right, and that this is step one in the process. After this, we have to go through plan review and satisfy all plan comments. So and our goal is always to be a good neighbor. So the primary speaker that will be used here will be in the rear of the building. We're still determining whether we'll have, how many stalls, if any, we'll have for the drive-up stalls. Any we do have, I'm more than happy to make the speaker face away from the residential area, so that you'd have no sound radiating across Stimson Avenue. And then light pollution is pretty easy to control right now with, like you said, with the LEDs. They're very directionally oriented. We can put them on timers, and then they don't radiate as much as incandescent lights or fluorescent lights did.
Do you, you said, this is moving to all drive-through and outdoor patio seating. Do you have an idea of kind of, I don't know how to exactly ask this, but the number of how much traffic you might generate from a rebuild? Because I assume you would want to increase traffic.
Yeah, I mean the goal would be to increase traffic. I would have to look at the ticket count today. I mean the store does, prior to the rebuilding of Stimson, it did substantially more. I would expect we'd probably increase maybe 20% from other scrape and rebuilds that I've done of similar stores. So I don't think it's going to be meaningfully different in the, being far more efficient because kitchens are set up newer, so people can actually get in and out more quickly as well. So
yeah, it's not a great drive-through residence.
No, it's not. So yeah, it'd just be a more efficient, more purpose-built structure.
Sounds like an improvement. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So, given that there's no one here to praise or blame, I will close testimony from the floor, and we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to grant a variance for the appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 230407A3 to allow drive-in to be 130 feet from a R1 zone for the case 22-12B.
I think, and then maybe say the address too.
Oh, and where the address is at 75 East Stimson Avenue.
Thank you. A second?
Okay. Kelly.
Okay. Thank you.
It works both ways.
So, findings-wise, are there exceptional circumstances applying to the property to consider?
I think the fact that it's the existing restaurant is a legal non-conforming use.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
There's a KFC just a few doors down, which makes it less exceptional, as well as a few empty lots.
Wait, you make it less exceptional?
Yeah.
Okay. I would argue that a rebuild is exceptional because they're tearing it down and putting something up according to a plan that's pretty much already, I mean, one of the prototypes he said will be used. So it might be difficult to, you know, depart from that plan in terms of the drive-through or whatever. Anything else on exceptional?
If I could,
Yeah.
there is one point I'd like to make, and this is because it's located in a AE FEMA floodplain zone, that if they do any remodel on the existing building that's more than 50% of the value, they would basically not be allowed to rebuild that building. They'd have to raise it up or not do that development. So there is some restrictions based on the FEMA floodplain in that location that limits how much remodeling they would be allowed to do currently.
I don't understand that. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that's exceptional. Are you saying remodeling or just building from
Remodeling.
scratch?
So say they didn't get the approval.
Yeah, and had to just remodel.
They would only be able to do some remodeling. They couldn't do a full tear down to the ground and rebuild a new one on the same location because of the FEMA regulations.
That's interesting.
And the cost of raising it up would be significant amount of that, I would imagine.
So is this already in the plans to raise the height of the structure?
That would be part of the process, yeah. They would have to,
definitely.
we'd have to look at the floodplain permit.
Yes, we would have to come up, but I think what he's saying is we're in a catch-22, that if we go to remodel, we really can't remodel.
Right.
Because there's no way to practically raise the existing structure.
While still maintaining your budget to do the actual renovations.
Yeah. Right, for under 50% of the value, because there's candidly not a whole lot of value in the current structure.
Oof.
Well, that's definitely exceptional because it's in the floodplain.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes an exception.
So that was that practical difficulty, or did I already say, was that just still exceptional?
Still.
Okay, practical difficulty and undue hardship. Again, this is so similar.
Before we move on, I'm not quite clear on that. On the flip, I got the first side of it. The flip side of it, the scrape and rebuild. Will they have to increase the level for due to the floodplain?
So what they're allowed to do on their existing footprint is they're allowed to make improvements that up to 50% of the value of the property. If they go more than that, Federal Emergency Management Agency's floodplain regulations don't want you to make lots of improvements in a flood-prone structure. So they would have to, and I don't know how you would do it, they'd have to raise that existing structure up in some way, and it's because it's a slab on grade. I don't know how you do that. So they're really stuck with with not being able to improve more than 50% of the value of that structure.
I get that part. I'm talking about if they do the scrape and rebuild, what does that look like from a grade increase?
Yeah, so they need to be at least the finished floor needs to be at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation, and we've been talking about what that is. I don't know that they have enough survey information to know exactly how much higher that is, how many feet that would be. Probably at least a couple of feet higher than it is right now.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So practical difficulty, well, we've addressed both of those, haven't we? In terms of floodplain and, yeah. Preservation of equal property rights, would granting the variance deprive others of, would it grant a special privilege or deprive others of a privilege? It doesn't seem relevant to me.
I think, again, it has to do with the other drive-in that's on the same street,
Yeah.
and whether or not they would be allowed to also do the same thing in the future.
Yeah, that's a good question. I could imagine that, yeah.
Yeah, I could as well. And I wonder about other properties also down Simpson, particularly given it's been recently redeveloped. I think there was a proposed drive-through farther up by the bank.
Was that the Butcher Place? Not Butcher, but Meat Wholesaler or whatever?
No, that was-
A variance, a couple of months ago.
He didn't want to drive through.
In
Wasn't
relation
Butcher,
to
no,
the proximity.
Yeah, the proximity of the,
But they weren't going to be doing they were an eating and drinking
they were,
establishment.
yeah, they were,
Is what that variance was for.
dine in
Right.
and take out or something.
No, I think I thought there was a Tim Hortons that was.
Oh, I don't know about that. Okay. Okay, would this be the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property? Based on what David has said, it seems to me that is the case, in terms of, yeah. Absence of detriment? I see no detriment unless it's the question of the noise pollution.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I tend to be, cautious about this kind of thing. I think the amount of, like increasing grade, noise pollution, light pollution, traffic increases in a part of town that is, I think the reason, one of the reasons for this code is to preserve a zone of walkability and like buffer. And so I tend to be skeptical, not particularly of this, particular project, but of this type of development based on its kind of externalities, and that's what I worry about, that we are, kind of taking a step down, having, setting a precedent for that.
Even though it's replacing, I mean, it's basically just updating an existing business with the same issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's also moving from an indoor, seating, like situation to only drive.
Only drive through and outdoor, yeah.
Now, I do like the outdoor seating. I think that's, but I don't think that's necessarily. I think that's I wonder when to draw the line as far as whether that is.
Well, isn't the outdoor seating just as much of a nuisance if people are outside, with their kids running around as the noise of a machine, of the, the microphone and then the speaker would be.
I think I'd listen to your kids over a Harley. Yeah. But I mean, that's just me.
Yeah.
I agree with Lisa in that this is a new thing altogether. I guess I understand more of a critical analogy. The fact that it's just replacing something that's already there, and they're doing it on the by and by with the code sort of blueprint, for me it gives them a little more pass. But that's just me. If I pass this, I'm still looking at him to make sure that he's holding them, to the fire, to make sure it's done it all on the up and up.
Yeah.
A lot of things that we vote on end. This one it doesn't. This one we're just giving him the opportunity to make sure that David holds him to the letter of the law, I would
And
think.
we know David will.
I don't know about that, but I mean, he'll try.
And I mean, this is probably not relevant to our decision-making process, but it is of interest, I think, that indoor seating seems to be not all that popular, and maybe other restaurants are going to, or fast food restaurants anyway, are maybe going to be minimizing that as well, if most of their business just is drive-through.
I think, my response to that would be that, you saw this be at Racks, and then it was something else afterwards. This is, changing the use of the property from
From a restaurant.
That you could put another restaurant in it today. I realize that it's not a high-value location. From a building standpoint, right, the quality of the building might not be great.
To a takeout, from restaurant to takeout.
Right, and so that's, you would have to do another scrape and rebuild to have it convert to something that was, was a sit-down. And that does seem like that is maybe also less appropriate for a residential area.
The residential area bordering, I mean, it's a little difficult. It's not like they're building in the heart of a residential area, they're bordering it. And that's going to be there's just an innate tension, it seems to me, when the two.
So sometimes what you could do in these cases is add stipulations to the permit to allow this use with some additional screening or something similar to that, if that's an issue for the board.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to put all the onus on David to make sure that
Well,
speakers
he probably can't, like, add stipulations on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make them up.
There are rules in place
Yeah.
that they're supposed to abide by, and presumably they will, that will make sure that they're not too noisy, too light emitting.
Yeah,
Right.
in this case, they wouldn't need to go to Title 41 site plan and then the landscaping code associated with that Title 41. So that screening that you would see for a bigger development, you wouldn't have that codified for this type of development. It's too small.
Because it's
It needs to be 5,000 square feet or larger, and it's not.
Dave, the other thing about this property, yeah, because I'm not, I walk through there from time to time. There was a bunch of runoff issue. I think it's been solved. I wonder how the kind of runoff planning would be if there is having to be a grade increase.
We think it would actually probably help the runoff and
Yeah, no, I
stormwater
think it
by raising the site. Yeah, we think it would actually help the area.
Okay. Good.
That raising has to come from soil that's already in the floodplain, is that how that's worded?
Yeah, so we do have compensatory storage requirements where they would have to, it's pretty complicated, but for the smaller year storm events, they'd have to compensate on that site to provide some additional storage for the storage that you lose from the fill.
Right.
So yeah, that's the case.
Okay, that was absence of detriment. What about general nature?
It seems
Not
pretty
a-
specific.
Yeah.
Pretty specific.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you all ready to vote?
Yeah.
All righty. So in the case of the variance requested,
I guess I have one more.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's no
I think the
problem.
only stipulation that would make an interesting, and I don't know if this is even possible, and it's fine if it's not, but would be to include, indoor seating. Like, is that something that would?
You're not thinking it rather about some kind of limitation on the noise of the speakers or whatever?
I guess I'm not enough of an expert to say what decibel level is, my hope would be that the code already, covers that, and that's an area where David can be,
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that, requiring them to include indoor seating is not maybe in their economic interest in it. I mean, if they're not going to have people actually using it, for example, then it seems unreasonable to make that demand.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
super certain on it. I just, from a, it does feel like to some extent a change of, like, not a full change of use, but at least a partial change of use that is maybe not in the interest of the original intent of the code.
Well, I would suggest, since we're not really super certain about, what would happen if it's all outside and how much noise and what have you, that to try to solve a problem that we haven't really defined exists at this point may not be indicated. So I'm squishing your ideas.
What are you doing?
Not you, but your
You
ideas.
say you're squishing them?
She's stepping on
The
it.
ideas.
Yeah.
That's
That's a good point, I think.
But I
We're
think
not.
we do know that development does create problems. Like, it does create noise and light pollution problems and litter, and
guess
like all of those things do happen. So we're not unsure if some things will happen. It's like that's part of development, is that there are some externalities, and we are okay with them as a community often.
Right.
But
Right.
But
I don't want
acknowledging that.
I want to resist the squish a little bit.
You want to what?
So
Resist the
noted.
squish.
Okay.
Take someday.
I would sort of agree with Kay that even if we acknowledge that these kinds of developments are going to bring on those things, we're not equipped to make demands on him as to how to mitigate that. I mean, we just don't have the information, as she says. how can we tell him, this is how you need to diminish the noise effects or the light effects? It's because we just don't have that expertise, or, that would be my thought.
Well, I think it often comes down to these 5 spurs coming out of the city of Athens that are business districts: Simpson, Richland, Union, State Street. I mean, if not there, where would you put this?
Yeah.
Where would you put this restaurant? I mean, nobody wants it in their backyard, is what I'm kind of hearing. But at the same time, this is a business district. It's had a restaurant there for decades, literally, with a drive-through. I can't imagine saying no, personally.
I mean, but our city did just put, like, a lot of money into making that specific business district more, walking and biking friendly, and we're converting away from something that can serve those modes of transport quite as well.
Well, he's going to have an outdoor seating area, and potentially the outdoor.
But that's only for, how many months of the year, right? I mean, half the year it's not. You're not.
When it's cold, it's not detracting from that walkability. Then, if it's cold and no one's using the outdoors at that point.
I mean, I walk to businesses when it's cold, and I go inside them.
I feel that we're a little far afield, though, in terms of considering this particular case. I mean, I hear your concerns, but I'm not. I mean, it sort of seems like we're going to just decide whether or not to let this variance be granted.
I think it's out of our pay grade.
Yeah.
I think this is out of what we're supposed to be ruling on.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and vote then. For the property at 75 East Stimson Avenue, please raise your right hand if you support the variance. 4. And opposed? 1. All right, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late.
No, not a problem. I'm glad you're here.
Made a lot of people wait. I don't know why he thought it was 7:30.
I don't know, just things like that.
He texted, Ben's like, you coming at 7 o'clock? I'm like, yeah.
I know.
I am. I was like, I am, and then I was like, da-da-da-da. Talked to Holly for like 5 minutes. Wander my way out.
What's going on?
We will get you over.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Thank you.
And then you said something, and I was like, why is everyone looking at me? I'm 10 minutes early. Why is everyone giving me grief?
Yeah, we're all sitting here staring at you.
Yeah, everyone else was like, what is going on here?
So we have 2 other items of business. The case at 2 Dalton Avenue, I don't need to read it, do I? They're officially withdrawn.
Right.
I'm just announced that. Is that, we don't have to do anything about it.
I don't think you need to even announce it, does she?
I don't know.
Oh, I mean, it's just on the agenda is all.
Yeah, I don't think we did it correctly last time.
Okay.
You don't have to vote on it, but just have to acknowledge that they have officially withdrawn.
Oh, so she does have to say it in the public forum.
Yeah, just so people know.
All right.
So that was case 2209V at 2 Dalton Avenue. They were looking to provide a private nursery daycare center, and they have withdrawn that variance request. And the last item of business is the disposition of minutes from July 12th, 2022. I have an idea that Kay and Ben and I are the ones that
I was definitely in England. I can't vote for it.
do you guys, I've read the minutes and didn't have any objections or corrections. Shall we, do we vote on the minutes? Okay. All who wish to approve the minutes as written. 3, okay.
I wasn't here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you and I can't do it.
All righty. In that case, do we have to have a motion to adjourn?
You're supposed to.
Yeah, I haven't learned those darn Robert's rules. Will someone move?
I move to adjourn.
Do we need
We can watch the baseball game.
Oh, and the baseball game. And who wants the second?
I'll second.
All right, the meeting is
You don't have to. I can
adjourned.
wait. I mean,
Thank you, everyone.
20 minutes.